Our next speaker, Professor Xiaoxing Shi, was the chair of the physics department at Temple University. Then in May 2015, the Department of Justice arrested him on charges of having sent secret American technology to China, effectively charging him with being a spy. In September 2015, however, the charges against him were dropped, and he was cleared of any wrongdoing because he was not a spy, and he had not sent restricted technology to China. While they were surveilling him, federal authorities misread the documents that he was sending, believing he was sending information on a certain secret technology, when in fact he was doing nothing of the sort. And in doing so, they almost ruined his life. We are extremely lucky to have with us today Professor Shi, who I'll invite to come join us in the front of the stage to tell us his story. Please give him a warm welcome.
So I am a physics professor, probably the only one in this room. I'm here because I was also a target of government surveillance. Until 2 years ago, my life story was not unlike many other first-generation immigrants. I was born and educated in China and married fellow graduate students there. In 1989, we came to the United States for better career opportunities and a better life. Years later, and 2 daughters later, we realized that our home is here and our careers are here. So we decided to become American citizens. So America gave me the opportunity to reach a level in my career that I would not have imagined when I was a youngster in China. And as a university professor, I teach my students to aim high and relentlessly pursue your dream, and to create knowledge of great impact. It is key to collaborate broadly with scientists around the world. May 20th, 2015 was a normal busy day for me, much like any other day, filled with teaching, research, and my work as the chair of the physics department at Temple University. I gave a public lecture for a science festival at an Irish pub before I went to the Philadelphia airport to pick up my wife, who was returning from a conference trip. My elder daughter was home from college for a few days, and my younger daughter was anxious about her dental surgery the next day. And by the time we made a plan to visit a famous Korean fried chicken restaurant, it was already late in the night. And none of us imagined that our life would be forever and suddenly and forever changed a few hours later when I was woken up by loud knocks on my door. So it was before 7 o'clock in the morning, and the pounding on my door was so loud and urgent that I ran to open the door, not even fully dressed. And I saw many people outside my house. Some were armed, and some had a battering ram ready to take down my door. And an FBI agent showed me his badge, asked for my name, and announced my arrest. And another agent turned me around and put handcuffs on me. So I was in total shock and thought this must be a mistake, a mistaken identity. When I asked the FBI agents for what I was arrested, and they wouldn't tell me. And in the meantime, armed agents in the bulletproof vest burst into my house, running about and rounding up my wife and 2 daughters. And one by one, they walked out of their bedrooms at gunpoint with their hand raised. And I was worried how frightening this must be to my wife and daughters, but I could not have a word with them. I learned later that from my wife that her top concern at the time was to shield our 12-year-old younger daughter from possible mental damages. And the FBI agents let me put on a shirt and let me out of my house in front of my family. And I did not know when I would be able to see them again. I grew up during the Cultural Revolution in China, and it was not unusual then that people got taken away and could not see their family for a long time. So more humiliations awaited me at FBI's Philadelphia field office. I was subjected to everything a criminal goes through, like DNA sampling, mugshot, fingerprinting. And later, when I was transferred to the U.S. Marshal Service to wait for my initial court appearance, I was ordered stripped naked and bent over against the wall so a U.S. Marshal could check whether I hid anything in my body. I was in handcuffs all the time, except when I was using a bathroom or locked up in a cell. During a 2 hours interrogation, they handcuffed me to the table. And at the end of the interrogation, the FBI agent finally told me that I was charged for having made a pocket heater, a device that was covered under a non-disclosure agreement with a U.S. company with a collaborator in China. And I said immediately, that's absurd. The fact is that I had never shared the pocket heater information with anybody in China. And how could the government do this to me and charge me for crimes and use techniques for violent criminals to incite maximum psychological damage against me and my family with not a thread of truth in their accusation? So I was really shocked and surprised, to which the FBI agent said tauntingly, "Oh, I'm sure this whole day has been surprising." And in the early afternoon, I was marched with several other prisoners into a courthouse full of people. And after several drug cases were heard, my turn before the judge came, and a public defender helped me through the bail hearing. So I was released on bail of $100,000 or my house with various travel restrictions. And when I finally united with my wife and elder daughter outside of the jail later in the afternoon, it was drizzling, and I shivered because I had only little clothes on me. So just as we pulled into our driveway, we saw the FBI agent waiting for us with a search warrant. For about 2 hours, FBI agent searched every corner of our house and carted away our belongings. And when it was all over, I told my daughters, "Dad has done nothing wrong, but you have to be prepared for a very hard life ahead of us." So there were 4 charges in the indictment against me, based on 4 emails I sent from my Temple University address to colleagues in China. None of the emails talked about the pocket heater. And they're all about things which are entirely different from the pocket heater. A heater is a device that we use to heat a substrate when we make thin film materials, just like using a stove for cooking. The pocket heater is a kind of a device that was invented and patented by a German company in the 1990s, and a US company modified it for its own purpose. It is not classified, it is not sensitive, and rather it's well known publicly. And I'm not aware of any economic values it has to the US company. And I don't even know why the US government should even care about it. And during the interrogation, the FBI agent did ask a lot of questions about my academic collaborations with Chinese colleagues. But collaborating with Chinese scientists is what the US government and universities encourage us to do. They are for advancing sciences, for publications, and never for financial gains. And in fact, I have never done research involving sensitive, classified, and protected information or export control technologies. So even though I knew I was innocent from the very beginning, I understood that we could still be in jeopardy if I did not defend myself successfully. So I was very fortunate to have engaged a team of great lawyers, and we were prepared to sell everything we owned to pay for their services. Leading experts in my research field provided affidavits to affirm that I have never shared the pocket heater information with China. And The author of one affidavit says that I'm very familiar with the pocket heater because I was one of the co-inventors. And so armed with these affidavits, my lawyers gave a presentation to the government on the science of the case and made a request to the government. Find your own expert and ask if there is any evidence Professor Xi shared the pocket heater information with people in China. We also gave a draft motion to dismiss the indictment to the government, which we were ready to file with the court. So on September 11, 2015, just the deadline date that the court ordered us to file our motion, the government dismissed the case, citing additional information came to the attention of the government. So to mark the occasion, we went to the Korean fried chicken restaurant, and it tasted so good. So when the case was dropped, and I told a New York Times reporter that the government should not have charged me without first checking with the expert. And I said, it's not a joke, it's not a game. And just imagine that one day I was a respected researcher and chair of the department and enjoy family life just like other ordinary American families. And overnight, I was painted as Chinese spy all over the news and the internet and faced the possibility of up to 80 years in prison and $1 million fine. And everything I had worked for 30 years, like a career, reputation, and a livelihood, would all be gone. So this sudden strike alone was enough to crush anybody. But even worse was the accumulated stress day in, day out as time wore on, and sometimes becoming almost unbearable. So how would my family live if I go to prison? How would I spend the rest of my life? And was the FBI still surveilling me? Or was it safe for me to leave my house? And all these thoughts never left my mind and weighed very heavily on all of us. And so friends and colleagues stopped talking to us, and I could not talk to my students. And in addition, we didn't know how we would pay the mounting legal fee if the case dragged on. So at a very dark time, the fear that we may not be able to hold on for too long seemed too real. So our emotions are like a roller coaster, right? From outrage, defiance, and disbelief to like and worries and frustrations and confusion, to scares and anguish. Right? It's really a nightmare that I do not wish any innocent American to go through. So it's been 20 months since my case was dropped, and our struggle is far from over. The government had never told us the reason why they decided to target me. We know that the FBI has all my emails, and the prosecutor told my lawyer that they listened to my phone calls. And from the court filing shows that the government has conducted intensive electronic surveillance and a physical search of me pursuant to FISA. Right? So we know I was surveilled. What we don't know is why. So once I was prosecuted despite being innocent, our peace of mind was gone forever. So right now we are living under constant concern that the government is still reading my emails and listening to my phone calls. And everything I do could be twisted as a reason to charge me. Just like a Chinese saying, to pick bones out of an egg. So did the government target me because of my Chinese ethnic origin? Because of my visits with my aging mother and my relatives and my friends in China? So my lawyer, Peter Zeidenberg, said that if he was a Canadian American or French American, or he came from the UK, would this have ever even got on the government's radar? And I don't think so. So what's alarming is that my case is not the only such case. Right? There was the National Weather Service hydrologist Sherry Chen, and there were Eli Lilly biologists Guo Jingcao and Yu Li, Shuyi Li. Right? So there is a pattern that the scientists of Chinese origin being charged only for the charge to be dropped later. So this has prompted members of the US Congress, the US Commission on Civil Rights, and many Asian American civil rights groups to ask the Department of Justice to investigate whether race, ethnicity, or national origin had played any role in these cases. So racial profiling is not just a Chinese American issue, but an issue for all Americans. After I gave a talk recently at University of Maryland about my ordeal, an African American student wrote to me, "I cannot pretend to know what you feel or struggle with. I have been trained my whole life that situations such as yours could happen to me." His great uncle was wrongfully convicted of raping a white woman and spent 25 years in prison until it was found that the fingerprint in the evidence matched another man. So if race-based persecution or prosecution exists to any ethnic group of Americans, such practices infringe on the constitutional rights of all American citizens. So in the surveillance wiretapping case of Olmstead versus United States in 1928, Supreme Court Associate Justice Louis Brandeis said in his dissenting opinion that the greatest danger to liberty lurk in the insidious approaches, encroachment by men of zeal, well-meaning but without understanding. The man of zeal in my case, or certainly without understanding, right, quite literally. Man of zeal can also be malicious and not well-meaning. Right? And prosecution based on race, ethnicity, and national origin are definitely not well-meaning. Right? The truth is, cases like mine do not advance the cause of fighting economic espionage and protecting our intellectual properties. They undermine people's confidence in America's legal system. They terrorize the Chinese American community and the scientific community. And they endanger the liberty that we cherish so much in this country. That is why I'm talking to you today to tell you my story. What happened to me can happen to you unless we all speak up as one against racial profiling in government surveillance and in law enforcement. So it is painful for me to relive my ordeal. But if I can make one more of you aware of the injustice that is happening and the human cost it causes, then I've done my part as an American citizen. Thank you, and happy to answer your questions.
Folks, we have time for one question from Professor Shi. And you can read, let me just add, we'll go to you, sir, in 1 second. You can read about his story and his lawsuit in the New York Times. Just go to the hashtag color surveillance, please.
Thank you for that story. It's incredible. Do you have any sense, Professor Shi, of how they found out about the email that you sent in the first place? How were you watched in the first place? Do you have any idea?
As I said, we don't really know why they were doing this. And that's one of the reasons that we are filing a lawsuit, because we need answers. The Chinese American, Asian American community need an answer, and the scientific community need an answer, because otherwise anybody could be the next target.
Thank you.
Thank you.